They can't stop the day we dissect the news. Flipping on the edge, choices to choose. Politics and laughter, a blend that's so real. Tuning for the stories that make you feel. With guests from every angle, let's bridge the divide. Finding the truth in the humor we can't hide.
But then there's this desperate need then to seek that out. Authenticity, probably in places that are
just
not.
Is dying to get there.
But you're not going to go. You're going to turn to ancient aliens. No, I'm kidding. You're going to turn to.
I might as well at this particular point in what we're experiencing in this realm that we call our Earth. We might as well go.
I wasn't going to say that, but I was going to say that damn co-pilot you got there on your lap. You're going to turn to things that are artificial.
He really. Why are you dissing? Yeah. Listen, my concern.
Take
my
Skynet
concern,
off your lap. Skynet.
My concern is that we are replacing each other with a digital faux being that is not really there. We are becoming more distant. We are creating a complete facsimile of what human interaction is. So when it does occur, we don't know how to respond. In the same way that you had mentioned how when we experience honesty, it becomes brutal. And I feel this is only going to create a bigger divide. It is further going to create that rift. And we are going to get to a point where we no longer will be capable of bridging it.
We may already be there at some point. I think you're exactly spot on, because the frictionless society was kind of usually more focused on conveniences like shopping and things like that. But,
Instacart.
Once we can create,
Guilty.
avatars that tell us exactly what we want to hear and kind of completely there's no friction there, right? Yes, we are no longer capable of that kind of interaction. But I think it's already happening. I think we're there.
So it's like a fragility.
Which, by the way,
a fragility in our culture.
And that's the other thing too. It's like and I hate to use some of the cliches, especially as it relates to me being such a big cinephile. But when it comes to movies, we've talked about this so many times, where movies are prolific, especially as we are at the advent of creating technologies that are going far beyond what the human mind can really conceive. Technologies ought to be in our everyday life, which would be quantum computing. You can go into fusion energies and all that. But the question then becomes kind of like very similar to Jurassic Park. Your scientists were so preoccupied whether or not they didn't stop to think whether or not they should. And I feel like we are moving in that direction, and that we can already see it, because that conversation that we had discussed, the Diary of the CEO with Scott Galloway and the other expert who was there.
Logan Ury, yeah.
Yes.
That's right.
Logan,
that's right,
yeah. And speaking about what is currently happening in, as it relates, for example, to the dating world, what is really happening in society as it relates to how humans exist.
Yeah.
It is fascinating
Yeah.
that we are reducing another human being to nothing other than a
swipe on
a
Tinder.
profile.
It's like a swipe on Tinder.
Yeah, it's a profile. You're nothing.
Yeah.
There is no authenticity. There is no voice. There is no singularity, because all I need to do is I can put in a few keywords. I can tell AI to write a profile for me. I can augment my looks on how I want to be perceived.
They allow you to do that on Tinder?
Oh.
Did they allow you to do that? So it's total fake then. It's not even, because everybody's going to change their looks to what they think the other person is going to.
Yeah, Chris Hemsworth.
Oh
Sorry,
God.
I had to go with an Australian. But it's like, look, I'm 6'4", 250, stacked.
Yes.
I mean, come on.
Yeah. Rich
beyond belief.
Yeah.
Which apparently now you have to at least have $1 million
that's
to be perceived as successful.
Yeah.
Which I'm so well above that, I mean, I just ordered a jet.
That's
It's about this big.
yeah.
It's about this big. It's fantastic.
Did you get it on Temu?
No. So funny you mentioned. No, I didn't. I ordered it like a good American. I ordered it on Amazon.
That's what the Lost Boys talks about, is that that's what the women are looking for, that small percentage of men that fit those categories, and so everybody else is kind of disqualified. It's just sad.
Scott Galloway made that point that like only, is it 17% of men? It's
Or-
a very
or
low,
six-
or
over
6
6
foot
feet.
or taller, like,
Yeah.
and we're I guess in that, but he's like, for all the other guys, you're
Because
just
they're
shut
disqualified
out.
on those shallow,
You're just completely out.
So it's no wonder that people, and especially I feel like, from a societal perspective, and by the way, I am genuinely interested as far as, for example, relationships are also concerned, as far as the deception, and leadership and, cohabitation, because I feel like cohabitating is something that no longer exists. Everybody wants to have their own space, like leave me alone and let me suffer in peace. But it's one of those. Sorry, I'm projecting.
It's like Jean-Paul Sartre said, hell is other people.
Yes, which reminds me of that. Wasn't it Mark Twain who said, "The more people I meet, the better friends I become with my dog."
My dog, yeah. Sounds like him.
Yeah, it does sound like him.
Yeah.
But I'm just genuinely curious as far as where do we go? Like what direction do we charter? Because it's interesting, especially as it relates to the conversation that was had during that podcast, is there is now an increase of what used to be the dreadful 1980s speed dating thing, but now they just call them socials, where people will literally just say, hey,
I've seen one of those.
Yeah,
we've been at a restaurant where we saw one of those.
Oh, really? Interesting.
We did.
Where
that
was
at the Cheddar's when it was in the
Oh.
bar section. You didn't see that over there?
I did, but I didn't. I thought I didn't put it together.
Yeah, that's what was going on over there.
Oh.
Yeah, and that's why you saw the frowns.
I guess that explains everything.
A lot of drinking and a lot of
Cheddars, huh?
oh god, no, that was pretty. Yeah, it's so interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's popular. Yeah, it's gaining in popularity because people are tired of swiping and not going on dates. I think I don't remember what the statistics were, but when you're on an app, like vast majority of your time is spent swiping and messaging, and like a minuscule proportion of time is like actually going on dates. And so the apps, I think people are disillusioned with the apps. I think they've gone back to meeting in real life. With the speed dating, of course, you're again exposed to a tiny fraction of somebody's, and oftentimes I think that people are just going to be like, oh, I really like that person. They, we had great chemistry. And I'm like, that person is probably a good conversationalist. Like, it doesn't mean that you have great chemistry. It just means they're kind of good at it. And that shy one that you don't even pay attention to, or that you thought was really awkward during your interaction and was like painful to talk to, is probably a really nice person that you should actually get to know.
That's us. Our first few interactions were a disaster, and oh my god. I was such a flipping clown.
Wait, your first few dates or interactions?
First few interaction. Well, no, our first interaction, she was coming around the corner with her then boyfriend.
Well, that's awkward.
Intriguing, and the plot thickens. Oh my goodness!
And
tell
we were
us
both
more.
lost, going to the wrong class in Dwyer, which no longer exists. It's a different place now. But it was. And I was dating somebody else, and then I got lost, and then ended up going to the classroom late, of course, and I had a ponytail back then. I had like a long.
He had
ponytail,
a mullet.
a mullet.
big
I
time
need a picture of this.
Yes.
No, you do not.
He had a mullet.
In any career I have ever had in politics, and then the only seat that was left in that class, it was Western
And really
civilization.
hairy toes.
Hairy toes.
And sandals. And I was like,
God.
oh my God.
And the only seat left in the class was next to you.
Yes,
And that's where
meant to be.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And
Kismet.
With his hairy toes and his moves. Even though he knew I had a boyfriend. I'm
So what did you say, Eric, to her?
Oh God, what did I say?
He was breaking out all his social constructions and all his sociology.
So soon?
Yes.
And you'll love this about deception.
Yeah, his Max Weber.
I still love Max Weber. Hey, one of the very first things I ever told her was meant to go as a joke. It was meant to be like, she asked me how old I was, and she turned away.
Laura Urich loves
as
this.
I was being kind of sarcastic. I go, well, I'm 31, and my face was supposed to demonstrate to her like I was joking.
I am so glad
and
you brought this up.
I know, I was
she
28.
really didn't see it, and so she really thought I was 31.
Because why would you lie about that?
Who would? Who would
would ever
lie?
do that?
I was joking.
See,
I
my
wanted
lie
to impress her. I
detector,
wanted to impress
no
her.
lie detector whatsoever.
Because I wanted to impress her because I was an immature
He was a
idiot.
professional drummer at the Broadmoor Hotel here in the Springs, and then he was starting his master's, and I was like,
I was
that
finishing
makes
up my
sense.
bachelor's, starting my master's.
but he was, I didn't have any reason to disbelieve him, and
So what do you think would have happened?
I was trying to joke, and it did. She looked away, and I was like,
That's not a very good joke. I think
it's
you knew
not,
what you were
right?
doing.
Right, so
and
funny.
I was trying to
Ha
impress
ha.
her. I was trying to, but it was.
But what do you think would have happened if you told her the truth in that moment?
I think she would have shut the door.
Oh,
I think
there's no
Liesl-
doubt,
I
because
think
I was
Liesl would have-
28 and he was only 21.
that just turned 21.
So there was no way I would have dated someone
she would
that
have.
young.
She would have been. I would have been Tindered.
I would have
No, you would have not even gotten to the swiping stage.
Yeah.
You would have had your filter set, which apparently that is the issue. It's
Well, we didn't date. We formed a friendship.
No, we were just
yeah,
friends
because it was a
for
different
while,
time.
So
but,
I would
yeah.
have been friends with him, but there wouldn't have been a time I would have moved into it.
We don't know that. We actually do not know that.
I know.
Yeah,
We'll never know that.
we'll never
It's-
know.
well, in the
'cause
multiverse, maybe there's like another
Exactly.
Eric and Liesl that's out there. That's
I would have
not
perceived
married.
him probably as less mature. Through that lens of knowing he was 7 years younger than I am, I probably would have perceived some of him, but I perceived him differently because I thought
I don't think your pheromones were lying. Let me put it that way.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't think your
Oh,
pheromones
okay.
were lying.
Let's.
I could-
These hips don't lie.
I could taste those pheromones.
Unbelievable.
Oh my God.
I apologize, everyone.
God.
We've gone
Oh, there's nothing to
into the
apologize
gutter.
for.
But it's true.
The
I
plot
mean, it
thickens.
is how you said deception.
Yeah.
It depends on the circumstance, and it worked. Oh my God, the deception actually worked. I got the woman of my dreams, and the rest is.
I just
Lie,
I have
everybody.
a bold
It pays
idea
off.
that the truth would have worked too.
You think?
Because if she liked you, yes, maybe you would have been friends longer initially, but she would have still gone for you.
You think? Would you? Have?
Ellen is of the opinion true
you
love
remember
wins.
Liesl back then. She was a little bit different back then. You know, she had razors for claws, and oh man, I had to prove.
Well,
myself.
now I'm just scared.
I had to prove myself, actually. When you called me out of the blue
I
a
was-
couple years later, I actually only ended up having about a couple weeks because you were going to move with your parents to Las Vegas. And I had to hit the gas pedal like, okay, if you're going to go after this girl, you got yourself 14 days.
No more massage moves.
No more massage moves.
Wait, so that's right, because you guys there was a gap, right? And then
Yeah.
yeah.
There
So
was.
Yeah.
you call him.
I had to break off with this fella, because I had to unentangle myself from this other relationship.
And then you called Eric why?
I called him just to hang out because I was going to be moving. I wanted to go get a cup of coffee and say I'm going to be leaving, and
at the time I was floundering in a relationship that I wanted to get out of and everything. Oh God.
I had become unencumbered
Yeah.
with the relationship I was in, and then I was going
It's
to
like-
leave and start over in
It's
Las
like
Vegas.
getting a lottery ticket, and you kind of know that, son of a bitch, this is your chance. I mean, that is literally that period of time. I know I had to be the best I could be. I had to be okay. I had to.
This
put
was
on,
before
I had to put
I was
on a
at the
clean shirt.
university. I was running a
You gotta,
business.
you
I was
gotta
running
make
a
sure you're
business.
manscaped. The other
Okay. All right. Well,
By the way, I have questions on technique. I've got questions on tool. Oh, is this not the podcast? Oh, I'm at the wrong podcast.
they do.
Sorry.
The two of them were talking like we should do a podcast on dating
We should.
and talk about
Oh.
our dating life, and then they also want to do one on meal prepping. They've got all kinds of topics they want to
Car
do.
maintenance.
Where
to go.
But this is not the podcast.
Sorry,
we've got Elena.
Yes.
So
in the Prime Directive, you're right. A Prime Directive should be to be honest. And if I were to go back and maybe advise myself, I'd be like, well, just take a little bit longer time and be honest. And she'll come around still, but maybe,
we'll never know.
Force yourself to say, well, I'm 12 years old. No, but I'm...
Well, and I think in the online dating world, like men are lying about their height, for example. So they don't get filtered out. And I think they're going about it sort of with the same philosophy, right? Mm-hmm. Like once she meets me, the fact that I'm like 5'9" is not going to matter, right?
Yeah, we just saw that Instagram thing that blew up lately. This guy that's doing this water routine. Have you seen this thing?
No.
Talk about deception. What was the name of the water company?
It's just his morning routine, and it's got 9 million views on Instagram.
Like 9 million. Or
and it's just his
followers.
6-hour morning routine that starts at 3 a.m.
And it's clearly
and it's just
bullshit.
Ridiculous.
It's clear bullshit, right? And it's all just to sell this stupid water company.
No, he actually wasn't endorsing the water, but then after he used this expensive water to clean his face, they reached out to him to endorse it officially, like Saratoga water or something. And
Saratoga water.
Speaking of which, our corporate sponsor is water. Again, remember, caps. Stay hydrated.
Yes.
Water caps.
That's right.
Water filtration and H2O.
Drink 72 ounces a day if you're in a dry climate like we are, at least.
Oh, boy.
So I hate to circle back, but so Admar had talked about like if we were in an ideal world, like what should we look for authentic leaders? I mean, what should what?
Well, first ethics, the segue is that another area of research that Elena does is authenticity and authentic leadership. A big area. In fact, a class she teaches at the university, very popular. Students love. So this is another area. Another love interest.
Yeah. Well, I mean, honesty is a communication tool, and authenticity we tend to think of, as a quality of a person or a thing, even.
Yeah.
Is this painting authentic, or is this person authentic? When it comes to like what we should look for in an authentic leader, there is the most important thing is, how does that person receive honesty from other people? Right? Because with authenticity, there's a sense that they're not like encumbered by like weird projection, defensiveness, false beliefs about themselves or other people. They're kind of engaged with reality in a really fundamental way. And so if you can be honest with somebody and they don't like shut down in defensiveness, or they can actually hear you out, even if they don't like it, no one's saying you have to like everything that people tell you. I feel like that is just the most profound quality of an honest person and an authentic leader.
Self-awareness.
Yeah, the capacity to receive honesty from others. And I think we all have a lot of work to do on that front. I'm not saying it's common. It's hard to hear honesty from others.
Yeah. I wonder if that's why so many people can't look in the mirror. You think? I wonder. There's a little trick that I picked up from a musician friend many years ago about looking yourself in the mirror, just staring in your own eyes for try to go as long as you can, but try to go 5 minutes and just see what happens.
That just sounds painful.
But I mean, but just you begin to you really begin to reflect within and see within. It's the mind's eye. It's almost like it's an Indian meditation technique, but just the reflection of the self into the self. Is this idea that how long can you go?
Yeah, especially because like mirrors really do reflect reality. I have a collaborator, his name is Mark Miller, and he studies the influence of social media, and this relates, let me explain. So, he talks about how, nowadays a lot of young people, they're only really seeing their faces via filters and like via like selfie cameras and all that, and they actually lose sense of like what they actually look like. And so when they encounter their real appearance, it causes a lot of just depressive symptomatology, or just extreme disappointment and a desire for plastic surgery. Just because it's like, oh my God, there was this idea of what I thought like of what I thought I looked like, and then I see the reality, and it's just everything's crashing around me, and all of a sudden I need a nose job, or I need like, you know, fillers in my lips or something like that.
You need Ozempic, or you need right.
So you know, it just reminds me of the mirror thing.
Yeah.
No, I was just curious. So would you say that based on that, the fact that even on the spectrum of society as it relates to finding someone and the fact that, for example, dating has been reduced to nothing other than this artificial way, do you think that when it comes to omission and deceitfulness, we are basically creating a society from the very beginning that almost where deceit becomes the norm, where deception is nothing other than our false perception of who we are? Talking about it's an exercise to look at yourself in the mirror and to be able to, I mean, I'm Eastern European. My reflection does not show. There could be another reason for that, but that's a different story. We're not going to talk about that. Sorry, I got something in mind. But no, it's interesting because genuinely, doesn't that become then the norm where it becomes more accepted in a way? For example, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't Japan very where everything is based upon high context societies,
very indirect people,
correct,
Yeah.
where you don't necessarily want to be very honest because of that. So I wonder
Face saving, yeah.
correct, where face saving becomes this norm, and that's the only way to really go out with someone or on a date to stretch the truth, so to speak.
You can stretch this truth. You can, you know, emphasize some parts of yourself. You're like, oh yeah, I'm really into fitness, but maybe you do it like, you know, once a month or something. So there are so many ways to stretch the truth and present an idealized picture. And so, you know, when you're dating, of course, that other person, like, they see you, and especially if you start living with them, they're really going to see you. So I think you're right. Like, I think we are going into it with, like, you know, we're all like managers of our brand and making sure that we're always, you know, like presenting ourselves exactly how we want to be seen. But, you know, at some point the jig is up. Like, you know, you can only pretend to be something that you're not for like, what, 2 hours at most, you know, and then you're just exhausted and you can't do it anymore. So it's like, we do it, but I think as a long-term strategy, it makes absolutely no sense. Like, the person will see you for who you are, including all your neurotic behavior and everything that you want to hide and all your terrible bathroom habits. Like, it's all coming out.
So Eric, just curious.
Why my name after that comment, huh? Bastard. No, it's true. It is so true. And with age comes that experience where you have to go through it. There's no shortcuts, are there?
But
you
if
do
we're
have to
not
go through
pairing
that.
up, and if we have AI boyfriends and AI girlfriends, we're not going to go to
No, and that seems disturbing. That we don't want that for kids. We don't want that for young people. We want you to find happiness.
We don't. Exactly.
Authentic
100%.
happiness
We
with
want you
real
to
people.
Authentic AI.
Oh, God.
That's
Actually,
right.
I saw a thing about how AI is replacing itself. So it's the first
great.
job that AI has eliminated is its own job. That's one of those findings that was coming from the was it NVIDIA? One of the new chips. Its first task was to eliminate the chip that had preceded it.
Interesting.
And I was like,
Evolution.
It's like you're
interesting.
too inefficient.
Interesting.
You're
It
being
did.
replaced.
It did. It said you are not living and you are inefficient. You're replaced. And it was like,
Yeah.
whoa. And it did it. It replaced the entire system that had been. So I don't know. Back to your point, though. It's who are some great inspirations for you that you would say would help anybody watching this particular podcast to follow that authentic? So for me, I've been getting to like Eastern philosophers and you know, Lao Tzu and this guy Zhuangzi and stuff. These guys had figured out 2,500 years ago that this is all bullshit. You gotta just you follow the way, follow yourself, follow your bliss, and then your authenticity comes out, and you're not deceiving anything. It's the Confucians that actually had all the rituals and the heavy. You know, you must do this before this and this, and it works up to a point, but then you get to a point in your life where you've got to just, You got to be you. It's the old song. I got to be me, right? And you just do, and you warts and all, and bathroom habits and all, and everything else. But you just really have to. So in your journeys, you mentioned a couple of your doctors and stuff that you had worked with at like in Buffalo and stuff. Anybody else that you think is a good mentor to maybe?
I mean, I don't. The problem here's the problem with doing like honesty and authenticity research, or just being interested in that topic, is that you might find somebody that is very inspiring, that you love their writings, you love their books, you love whatnot, and then you kind of find out that they're not actually that way in real life. And so this was sort of the Ellen DeGeneres problem, if you guys remember. She was seen as so real, so authentic, so connected to her guests, like so kind, all those things. And then all those stories came out about that she was a little bit abusive, I guess, and horrible to work for.
She's just a person.
That's one example, and I'm not going to name names because I've also heard similar stories from other big names in the field of authenticity, vulnerability. So I don't really believe in mentors, but one thing in my authentic leadership class, one book that I do recommend to all my students, it's called The Courage to be Disliked. And it's based on Adlerian psychology, and it's kind of a co-written book. So I think it was originally a Japanese book. And there's an English version co-written, and I just love that book for my students because it tells them how to start kind of inhabiting themselves in a real way and just kind of not worry so much about other people's approval or disapproval. And it also teaches us to stop giving approval and disapproval to other people, but to kind of let them be. And so I think with that kind of compassionate acceptance of who we are, warts and all, I think it can kind of make you more willing to accept other people's warts and all, and bathroom habits. And
God forgive him. No, it's a Fumitake. God, I hope I didn't mispronounce that. Fumitake Koga and Ichiro Kishimi.
Exactly.
Oh, this is my future. Okay, this is what I'm doing today.
That's important. I think that's really important because we look for validation so often.
The courage to be disliked. The Japanese phenomenon that shows you how to change your life and to achieve real happiness.
It's very different. Like when you're reading it, like, they will say things there and you're like, what? How is this possible? They'll be like, never praise people.
Oh,
and, and you're just like, what? Who is this insane person writing this? And then you kind of have to sit with it and, kind of accept the idea that, when you're praising somebody, you're kind of hooking them a little bit on validation, and you're kind of, they don't need your approval.
Huh.
They can just do what they want to do.
Yeah, I'm already getting twitchy. Like, what?
Really?
Wait a minute.
Oh, it's like when you're done teaching and you ask for feedback as a teacher. I remember being in a precarious position because oftentimes the group of students that I would teach, number one, they had to pay to be there. They were mandated to be there, and they had to spend their free time to be there. So listening to me talk was a challenge, and it was my job to effectively convince them this is for you, not for me. But it's interesting because what I would ask for feedback, and the feedback was oftentimes, it was good. Well, that doesn't tell me anything. What was good? What was not good? And I would flat out tell them, talking about being brutally honest, but I would always preface it, and I would say, if you believe that I did not do well, you'd be wrong, but tell me why. If you believe that I did, you'd be right, but still tell me why. And don't worry about hurting my feelings because I don't have any, so it's totally fine.
And was that effective?
Very. I think prefacing and actually asking genuinely, talking about authenticity, it's like, I'm going to sit here with you. There are only two objectives, and the objective for me is to improve so that I can be better for you and all subsequent classes that are coming up. But I feel like oftentimes what really happens is you need to invite that. And that is not easy, because sometimes I have received feedback where I'm reading it and I'm like, you could not be more wrong. You clearly missed this wonderful opportunity to see where I was attempting to lead you, but that's because of your shortfalling. Shortfallings, not because of mine, because I'm just infallible. Like, this is as good as it gets.
I'm so glad you're bringing this up. There's a book called Thanks for the Feedback by Douglas Stone and Sheila Heen, and it actually is all about that, like how to receive feedback even when the person doesn't have the right to be telling you that, even when it's totally off base and they have no idea what they're talking about. And so it's this beautiful guide on how to like receive feedback, even when you might judge the feedback as useless or like in other ways like not appropriate. And it's just stuff like, broken clock is right twice a day. So even the most disengaged student probably has some perspective on quote unquote the truth that they might be able to share. And there's always some kernel that you can take away, even from like the worst comment that you can imagine. So what's like the worst feedback you guys have received? This is a
I know.
Okay,
Wow.
I think. And the podcast is over. Look at that. Look
right?
what time it is.
But I just wondered if we could like workshop it a little bit and just
Yeah.
kind of like unpack it and then...
I always, my least favorite is always like, she's so boring. That's like cut me to the bone.
Your classes?
Yeah, well, I've had that feedback.
That must
and
be the most boring student in history.
That's just, and I wonder, it always takes me to, where's the student coming from? Because I just always think, and I'm online now, so this would have been more when I was in seat. When I was in seat and I had the students, and I always would pride myself on being able to lift up a class and take them with me where I want them to go, and just so having that one student that would have feedback that this is so boring. Would just cut me to the bone, and that would be the one piece of feedback that would, even if I got 20 that were like the class was amazing, it would be that one that I would be like, boring, what? And that would kill me, but I would try to think what was disengaging or what was boring, and how did I lose this one student? But then I would end up like Admar going, well, that student is just a disengaged student. That student just didn't prepare, didn't check in, and I would kind of end up there.
You'd
because
use more
I'd be
colorful
like,
language in that.
yeah, because there's so many other students that checked in and had, but that was probably my least fave.
Well, and in this book, thanks to the feedback, they recommend things like, you want to triangulate that. Like if you're getting one comment like that and 20 comments of this class was amazing, then now you're beginning to see a picture painted of reality. What we tend to do, of course, is hyper-focus on that negative comment. And then it's an identity trigger, right? Because it's like, you're like, I'm not boring. I'm exciting. I'm amazing.
Exactly.
And so that just kind of hits to that core that we hate that.
Yeah.
But
or the retaliatory comment, like, somebody didn't do well in your class and here they come.
Yeah, exactly.
Here they come.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
And in K-12, you have to get evaluated every year. There's an evaluator who comes to you, and I had one evaluator. So she showed up late. You're supposed to schedule ahead of time. They're supposed to watch your class. I had posted my learning targets. I had my essential questions. I had everything ready to go and stuff. She had already delayed 3 or 4 times. This is years ago. And at the end of it, she was on her computer the whole time checking boxes, because you got to check we have this rubric that K-12 educators have to check the boxes, whatever. But she was sitting over there clicking and just not really watching my lesson or anything. And at the end of it, I got a sticky note that just said good, but because she was in such a rush and her radio had been going off, like, because there's always a crisis when you're AP at a school. There's just always, a fight down the hall, or there's a parent who's pissed off and they want to get, or whatever. The superintendent's in the building, you want to kiss his ass or whatever. There's always something like that going on. So she leaves this sticky note and it says, she meant to say good, but because she was in such a rush, it just said God. And so afterwards I went to her.
I am God.
Yes, I'm God.
So afterwards I was like, do you want me to go to church with you or something? And then she was a little miffed at me because I was trying to make light of the situation. And then I had maybe a brief talk with her. I realized very quickly it did. I just needed her to check the boxes. She did. And then, we moved on. The best feedback I ever got was from this amazing...
That wasn't the question.
I know, but it's a good juxtaposition, right? There's this guy named Rich Law, And he videotaped me. He did what we're doing here. He videotaped my lesson. We watched my lesson together for about 10 minutes, and then he just listened and said, "What do you see?" And then that was, to me, I was like, shit. Those kids were sleeping in the back of my class, or they weren't, but or they weren't paying attention. They were just off task, or I didn't notice I came across like this, and I didn't give this kid enough time to answer. Or for me, it was this weird thing where I couldn't see my own bias. I kept picking the same 3 kids to answer because they know and I wanted the answer to come out too quickly instead of giving the class time to struggle and maybe not getting the answer and just letting it go and just let it fester for the day. Yeah. Why did the Greeks, what happened to the city-states and stuff? And I'm don't give the answers. Go ahead and let them struggle and do that. That was the best feedback I ever got because it was honest. It was honest because it was videotaped.
Yes, and it's a feedback best practice. You want to be giving feedback that's almost like a video camera. So not like you're boring, but like, here's how your voice changes or doesn't change, over the course of a lesson. Or, you don't want to be saying you're biased.
Although
here's
we all
what you
are.
look like.
We all of us have it.
But when you kind of come at somebody with that judgment, like that's no one wants that. No one wants your judgment. You're not God, to get back to.
Despite what people say.
How do you know?
This was so bad. You really need to find a deity to help you.
Yeah,
right.
No, if the student had given me some concrete things that I'd done to bore them, that would have been helpful, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it would have been meaningful because I am completely open to constructive feedback because I'm always looking to improve. And I mean, if I have something to build on, and I do ask for constructive feedback, I actually solicit it. Because I will make changes year to year if I have meaningful and constructive feedback that I get. Because I'm like, that's actually useful to me. And that makes sense. I am completely, interested in the fact that I do that or I could improve there. But just that statement is just like, to me, retaliatory or yeah.
Yeah. And I think who gives the feedback is also important because having taught, there's a distinct difference of if I receive feedback from a student, it's like I clearly lost you somewhere because you did not follow where I was going. And perhaps there is a way that I can improve to make sure that everybody comes along. I think sometimes when feedback comes from individuals that you hold in high esteem and that individual comes back with something that is really going to impact you, that can be very difficult. I received feedback from someone that I admired and I was truly attempting to get to solicit some kind of positive feedback, and the person basically told me, after doing this at the professional level for 43 years, your performance was among the worst I've ever witnessed.
Ouch.
No.
Ouch.
Oh.
Ouch.
What
was there any explanation behind that?
There was afterwards, but at first I think the human instinct is to be defensive.
Of course.
Well, because of X, Y, and Z, like how can you expect me? But I think what's really important, talking about constant, never-ending improvement, basically soliciting how do I improve, instead of putting up those barriers, putting up those walls. I think it's important to redirect the feedback and basically say, okay, so what can I do now? And oftentimes with this particular person, this person was very good about coaching in terms of, I'm not going to say anything about, I already know, but I'm going to have you think through the process why it was so bad, and you will at the end agree with me. And after sitting with it for the better part of 40 minutes and going back and forth over 2 points of contention, I was like, I hate to admit it, but it's so true. Because at that particular point, it's no longer, okay, this was a learning opportunity. And I think that's something that we miss.
Join us on this path, let's ignite the blaze. So grab your headphones tight, let's go for a ride. With every spin and twist, we'll each other thrive. Politics and culture, oh what a blend. Join on the journey and let's set the trend. As we close the chapter, lend us your ear. The Prime Directive's calling, so let's pass a beer. The Prime Directive, where the laughter's alive. Society's reflections, let's help each other thrive. Politics and